Good morning. This is Dennis Wilson coming to you from beautiful uh, blue skies of Montana. On most days, it's blue skies, but we're feeling the effect of the Canadian smoke right now. This is episode 1, part B of my prologue. And I want to finish explaining to you my motivations for doing this podcast. This podcast is a class on the United States Constitution, and I hope that I can invite all of you, young and old, to the podcast to learn more or something new about the United States Constitution. And as I said in my first podcast, that I will try each time to start my podcast with a practice that's quite old, but I hope it is enduring and I hope it's carrying on in our public and private schools today. My granddaughters say, yes, it is. So that's great. We're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So if in your car, go along with me. If you're at home and you're in front of a flag, great. Share with me. If not, imagine a flag and share with all of us. So here I go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a couple of words about the hat that I'm wearing. I would like to thank my good friend Steve for the design and helping me put this together. As you notice, it's got the stars and stripes, but those stars are only 13. And I borrowed that from our earliest official flag. And if you notice in the middle, it says, "Don't tread on me." And I put that on there for a reason, a very important reason. Um, don't tread on me means stay in your lane. Don't tread on the Constitution. It's all that we have. And it's, to me, terrible to want to tread on something so fragile and precious as the Constitution. On the back of my hat is the word freedom. And much of this podcast will talk about that idea, that word freedom. It means so much if you are a Republican, Democratic individual that believes in our founding principles. You will um, go along with me on this, and we will learn a lot about these ideas down the road. But for today, I want to carry on with where I left off. I was talking about my motivation and reasons for wanting to do a podcast. And if you haven't yet watched uh, episode 1, part A, you might go back and do that. But for now, I would just like to say that I left off talking about the elitists in the country. We've always had elitists. They go way back in European history. They referred to them then as aristocrats. And, that notion, that idea carried over to the colonies and got ingrained in our political system. And the King of England was able to dish out favors and posts and important offices to his aristocrats, which he did. So we have had this notion for many, many years, and we just can't seem to break from it. So I will leave it there for right now and come back and talk about elitists and their role in our Republican democratic form of government. I would like to go on now and just talk about another reason why I think it's important that I do this. I look around and it's not just in recent history, it goes way back. But there are times in our past when we've had a moral decay. Now, what do I mean when I talk about moral or morality? Well, guess what? When we're young kids, we get it pretty early on. By the age of 4 or 5, we begin to learn the difference between right and wrong. And if you were of that generation as I was, you learned it early because sometimes you got your butt spanked because you were wrong. So we learned this notion early on, and we began to practice that as we went through school and became adults. And we will talk about citizenship in the next podcast at length. But for right now, I want to get into some of those moral issues. I think that one thing that has just run rampant in our culture and our society is people lying to one another, just outright lying. And if there's one thing that just causes me to cringe and almost weep over this is this notion that you can just lie to anyone and everyone. To me, when you do that, you're trying to play me as a fool, and that I am not. I'm old enough now, I can read through this, and I don't like it. And we can look around, and especially in our political world, and we can see this line that goes on day in and day out. And I'll talk more about that later in the podcast. Uh, some other areas of moral decay is the greed and corruption. We think that society owes us everything, that we are entitled to everything, that this idea of performance and meritocracy doesn't apply, and that you want yours right now. And because of whatever reason you might throw out there, you think you've earned it. Well, I hate to tell you this, but capitalism is based on one of the fundamental ideas that of meritocracy, that you got to work for it and you have to earn it. And if you do, I strongly believe if you do this in school and learn to read and write and work hard, opportunities will open up, the doors will open up, and people will be more than willing to help you along the way. And I don't care what race or religion you are, I think this is a fundamental truth that has been fought for by some of our great leaders who were not politicians, people like Martin Luther King Jr. and many, many others that fought for these strong moral values. And going back to ancient times, the earliest political philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they always talked about the importance of virtue, of this moral understanding of right and wrong, not just for individuals, but for governing their city state, for those who provided leadership. And they promoted these notions of public education for all, and that the very best and the most wise would become the rulers, and they would all benefit from that because of a goodwill. Um, and I think it was very important in early development of some of the philosophical ideas of republicanism, which we'll talk about later on. Sorry, I had to take a look at my notes there. Um, Another issue under morality is the destruction of the nuclear family. What do I mean by that? The nuclear family is composed of mom and dad, And the children, maybe one, maybe five, six, seven, 10, I don't know. But, that has always been regarded as the nuclear family. Um, and the nuclear family has provided the support, the adult modeling of good citizenship um, to their children. They display it, they show it, they encourage it, and that's a good thing. But since my early days, I watched people get divorces for frivolous reasons. They go into court and say, "Oh gosh, my spouse or my husband is 60 pounds overweight. He's getting ugly. He won't shave, and I want a divorce, judge." And the judge says, "Yeah, okay." So whatever that reason might be, they just grant a divorce. And guess what? That not only hurts them, it definitely hurts their children, and it also hurts society. And I think that in most cases, that the judge should push the pause button and said, "Look, you people go off, you two go off and try this again on a 60-day trial, and then come back and let's talk about it." And try to nurse them, or at least give them time to iron out their differences and settle those things so their marriage and their nuclear family can go on. But I think that's another thing that is causing this moral decay. Now, moving on, I will definitely come back and talk more about that, but I want to move on to some other issues right now that are of great concern to me. And again, I see the all of these reasons for starting this podcast um, as 1,000 drones circling over this fragile document that we call the United States Constitution. Um, it's done very well at fending off or defending itself uh, over the course of time. The Constitution has been around, not yet, but will soon be coming up on 250 years, which is pretty amazing for self-governance, unheard of in American history and in world history. Um, so going down that road, there's a list of other things that I'd like to consider here as to why I am very, very distressed at the Constitution's ability to carry on into the next generation. And as I said, I'm doing this not for myself, not for my wife, but for my grandchildren who are part of our posterity, and to their children and their grandchildren. I want them to have the same blessings and opportunities that I had, that came from merit and hard work. Also, I would like to take this moment to dive into some other issues that deeply concern me, that I think threaten our Constitution, and that is corruption. Okay, corruption in society and the culture and politics has been around forever. There's always going to be those bad influencers and people out there with very bad ideas or very bad intentions. Yeah, and that is, that's a sad growing rapidly today. And we need to confront that, and we need to put a stop to it. Examples of some of this corruption that I'm talking about today. One of the more recent um, cases or examples of this is voter fraud. If you know, just last week, documents were released showing that more than 2 million people, um, their their voting data had been confiscated. And we also know that the Chinese played a role in this, And that's a scary thing, because one of the most precious things that is given to us by the United States Constitution is the right to vote. And it doesn't seem like much. I mean, look how many millions and millions of people vote each uh, uh, each cycle. Um, and I think the purpose here is that voting is a right. It's been with us from the founding of the country, and it's just precious. Why do I say that? What evidence do I have to say that? Well, take a look at the millions and millions and millions of dollars that both political parties spend to get elected or reelected to office. They know that on that particular day, your vote counts, and they want it, and they'll spend a lot of money to get it. So I think that's an obvious reason why your vote counts. But what we need to do in voting, and I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever, um, you should be free to vote your conscience. You should be able to walk into a voting booth and go through the process, walk out with a smile on your face that you did something very important for yourself and for your country, and let the chips fall where they may. You may be on the winning side, you may not. But I guarantee you, as I said earlier, there are 1,350,000 Americans who gave their lives so that you can walk into the voting booth and vote. So please, again, I don't care. I don't care which political party you belong to. Go vote. It's essential for governance of a free and democratic Republican system. Okay, let me move on. We'll come back later on and talk more about this voting fraud. But there are other concerns that I have. Let me just take a quick look here. Um, Loyalty. Let me just talk for a minute here about loyalty and misplaced loyalty. Um, I think it's very important, very, very important, that our loyalties, if you're a politician or even a citizen, your loyalty is to the Constitution and good governance. You're not there to line your pockets. You're not there to make sure that when you leave, or say when you came in and your net worth was $250,000, and when you left it was worth 40 or 50 million. No, no, that's not why we send people to Washington, D.C. We have many, many, many problems in front of us today that need to be resolved. And that's why voting's so important. We need to listen. But some of these politicians, very articulate and very good speech givers, make promises. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and I promise you this and I promise you that. Well, the election's over, they've won, and they go back and continue doing the same thing they were doing, which may benefit accidentally or it may intentionally benefit the country, but in many cases, the promises are forgotten. And that goes for both political parties. I'm not just speaking of one or the other. I'm speaking of both political parties. And I don't think our country or our Constitution can take too much more of that. So listen carefully. And my advice is, don't just look or hear what they're saying. Watch carefully what they're doing. They've got to match up. If they don't match, then you've probably been lied to, or at least hoodwinked in believing the politicians. So be careful when you go to the polls and you vote. Um, Now, another thing on loyalty, um, too many times politicians have become not loyal to the Constitution. Oh, they take the oath of office. oh, they swear to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. But that's not all, that doesn't always happen. Their loyalties, as we see more and more, rest not with the principles, the founding principles of the Constitution, they rest with the party. And that is a tremendous mistake for them and for the country. Loyalties should be first and foremost when they place their hands on that Bible and swear to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. That says a lot. If it wasn't important, we wouldn't spend millions of dollars, taxpayers' dollars, and private money to put on an inauguration for the world, and heads of state come from all over the world to see the inauguration of a president. And all he does is put his hands on the Bible and say, I swear to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. Very simple to say, very difficult to achieve. And I think we have judged in the past, we have judged our presidents and others, congressmen, senators, on fulfilling that pledge, that they stood behind the founding principles in the Constitution and they made good judgments, good decisions for all. Let me move on now and talk about more of these drone attacks that are coming to, like I said, a very fragile constitution. It's only as strong as the people who lead it. They're only as strong as the people who lead it. And those who lead it are politicians. So let me go down a list of other things here that I think are important as far as drone strikes on the Constitution. The first thing I have on my list, and the most important thing you're going to disagree with, and that's fine, but to me, the most important thing is our national debt. National debt? What does that have to do with the Constitution and the government? Well, for the last 40, well, actually, President Clinton was the last president to have a balanced budget. But since that time, we've been on this wild spending spree that has put us in a very, very difficult spot. I remember before I left teaching, my students and I, every day, I would put up the old tumbler that was showing the national debt as it rapidly increased. And at that time, we were $17 trillion in debt. Well, in a short period of time, a little over 10 years, we now are facing more than $42 trillion in debt. I'm not an expert on economics. I taught economics, but I'm not an expert, and I have to listen to the judgments of others who have more information than I do. But they're saying that we're getting into a very difficult spot because we're approaching the time soon when all we can do is pay the interest of $1 trillion a year on that debt. That's more than we spend on our entire military budget or any other budget of the federal government. Think about that. $1 trillion in interest and nothing on the principal. So the question is this debt ever going to get paid? And if it continues to spiral out of control, eventually, no one can disagree with this statement. Eventually, the economy will collapse and it will take us into the darkest depression that we've ever seen. And the question is, can a constitution withstand such a shockwave? I doubt it. That's just my take. I know I'm skeptical. I'm a historian, so we're skeptics, some of us. And that that bothers me a lot that we can't reverse this trend. I not always agree with this politician, Senator Rand Paul, uh, for a lot of different reasons, but I do agree with him on never voting for any bill that comes up that wants to increase our national debt. I would hope that our politicians on both sides of the aisle will take a step back and go, okay, we've got to pull in this excess spending. We've got to keep a budget like we would at home and not overspend, period. Another threat that we have to our Constitution is education. Again, going back to the times of Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, they believed that this was fundamental in a democracy. It was fundamental that all children, women and men, have a formal education through the age of 18, and they learned every discipline or most disciplines that we have today: reading, writing, math, science, geography, political philosophy, moral citizenship training, and on and on. And they they understood that. They understood that education, educated people, only they can defend a democratic society, and in our case, the United States Constitution. So that is of paramount importance. And as I'll talk about later on, there has been a lot of decline in the standards of our education over the years, and we've reached a turning point. Some states are now turning these poor standards and results around, but many are not. At one time, we were in the top 10% of industrialized countries in terms of our education and the standards that we expect. And now we're in the lower 20%. How did we get there? Uh, I don't know all the answers. I can, surmise and come up with some pretty good ideas. But for now, I think we just need to know that is a threat and attack on governance. Because, like I said, if you can't read and write, if you can't listen carefully to what politicians tell you, you may be duped time after time after time, and we cannot afford that as a country. So, all you kids out there that's still in school, there is a purpose for education. Grab it, seize the moment, and go out there and become a success, because your success is our success. Now, let me go on with just a couple of more here. Um, in throughout American history, going back to the founders, when they constructed the Constitution, in some areas they were extremely liberal. Okay, very open. They wanted these rights that everybody wanted. These fundamental rights, the founding principles that brought us these rights. Um, they wanted these rights for not just every American citizen, but even for those who visited our country, that they could speak their minds. Okay, um, but I think that a mistake, and I know, again, words have meaning, and I know that some of you will disagree with me on this, but there is one orthodoxy, one set of ideas that have time and time again attacked the Constitution, and if they can, they will destroy it. They will destroy it. They're serious. They're organized. They've got financial backing, and they think they have a cause or purpose, and they're going down that road. And we have to do everything we can to prevent that. Sorry about that. There was an interruption. I got an ad blurb that came across my screen, so I apologize for that. But going back to that there's one orthodoxy that we cannot tolerate, and that is okay. Trying to stop my alarm. Um, there is one orthodoxy that we just can't allow, and that's communism. Okay, communism was the great lie, and I'll explain more of that later. Karl Marx got most of it wrong. History has proved that with the collapse of the Soviet Union, communism, um, the collapse of communism in other countries around the world. Cuba right now is on the brink of collapse. We know that. We know what's going on down there on a day-to-day basis, and it's not good. But the people are desperate. Uh, in a communist world, they promise, 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 lie, 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 and you don't get what you think you're going to get, and you may even lose your life if you dare speak out. Uh, Currently, at the present time, we now have a organization within the communist group, and they call themselves the Democratic Socialist of America. Well, it's all a lie. These people are communists. They're not democratic. They can make all kinds of claims like that. They're not even socialist. They don't even believe in socialism. I'm not sure what kind of an economy they even think that they're going to produce. But it won't be capitalism, and it won't give all of us working hard and putting our faith in meritocracy um, to to improve yourself. Um, and how do I know? How do we know this? Well, they came out with their platform. They said we're going to ban the Senate. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to get rid of the presidency. We're going to change and modify the the Supreme Court. Are you kidding me? The founders separated powers in three different branches of government for exactly what's going on here. This is a power grab, plain and simple, and we must stop it. For now, I think you got a grasp on why I want to do this. And the next episode, I think you're really going to like. Uh, I interview my three of my granddaughters. I wish the fourth would have been here, but I will interview three of my granddaughters on the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. I think you'll find it interesting. I think you'll find it funny, and I hope that you can all join me in the next episode. So for now, from the best place, as I've said, almost, because the last best place is not Montana. It is the United States Constitution. Without it, that blue flag behind me would not be here, and neither would the stars and stripes. So, as Aaron Tippin said in the song, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. I want you to stand with me, now and forever, behind our Constitution, and we will persevere, and we will survive, and we will leave a great heritage to our children and our grandchildren. Good day.